Welcome to the Four Borders podcast.
Okay, Dave, we're back. Now it's 11:10, and it's still Halloween night. Hey, I'm your host. I'm Alex, and this is Dave. This is the Four Birdies podcast, where we talk about golf, we talk about fantasy football, we talk about disc golf, we talk about a lot of things that really cross our minds. Tonight we're talking about candy and football teams in the NFL and how those football teams are associated with all the candies. We're going to tell you how. Dave, how do we come up with this?
Talking about candy, talking about initially, right? We talked about doing like a tournament, like a tournament of champions for candies. And then we thought, how do we tie this into like the rankings for the teams right now? What if we had to assign a candy to each team? And then it kind of went from there. So, like I said at the end of episode 1, this is going to be candies that we feel like are most appropriate to be paired up with each particular team, either from the demographics, the record, the colors of the team logos, the mascots, and just the general vibe of the fan base. So we put a lot of thought into this. We hope you like it.
Well, Dave, you put a lot of thought into this. You gave me 30 seconds before we started this podcast to come up with all mine. Fortunately, I'm a really fast thinker, and fortunately, we came up with a title for this. This is called Candy Ass Teams. And so basically, what we're going to do is, Dave, you're going to take some of the teams. I'm going to take some of the teams. We'll go division by division in each conference. And you're going to take some teams. I'll take some. And, whatever kind of candy inspired you to pick that team and associate them with that one. And then what we're also going to do at the very end is, with your help, Dave, you kind of look through all the power rankings of who was number 1, number 2, number 3 as of today, as of Tuesday after a Monday night football game where the Lions beat the Raiders. Let's go. You reference all the power rankings, and we're going to count backwards from 32 to 31, 30 from the worst candy that we picked and to the best candy that we picked. So we'll find out what that very best candy is at the very end. Are we going to agree with all of it? I'm not sure. Dave, did you have to jump in? Okay, well, let's get started here, Dave. We're gonna start with the AFC East, and I'm gonna start with Miami. Miami is they just happen to be the first team I'm starting with because we're starting the AFC East. They might also be the best team in the power rankings, but we're gonna tell you when we get there. But Starburst. I mean, I guess the name says it all, right? Like, it's a bursting star. And it's fast as light. So, I mean, isn't that what Miami kind of predicates their offense off of?
I feel like they're a colorful team, and I feel like that fits pretty good. Yeah.
They're pink. The pink Starburst is the best of the bunch, and that's a very colorful wrapper that you have, very colorful team. So that's why I went with Starburst for Miami. Up next, I got the Buffalo Bills, and, what I associated with them was the Almond Joy or the Mounds, right? So, you've got the Almond Joy out there that's got the nut in it, and you got a little balance between the chocolate, the coconut, and the nut. But then you got the Mound where you don't have the nut, and it's like, where's the balance? It just doesn't seem like it's much fun. And I feel like that's kind of what you get with the Buffalo Bills. Like, you might get the Almond Joy, and you're like, oh, this is great, this is awesome, I need this. And then you might get the Mound, and then you just set yourself up for disappointment. And you're just kind of like middling out there with two delicious candies where one's superior. Just do that. Play better all the time. Just play better. Can't you just do that, I guess? So that's where I got that.
Let me ask this. So the Almond Joy has an almond and the Mounds don't. But the Mounds are dark chocolate and the Almond Joy is milk chocolate, correct?
I believe that's true, yeah.
Okay, what a lot of people don't know is you could actually take an Almond Joy and turn it into a Mounds milk chocolate by taking the almond off of it, and then you have a Mounds. And then what people don't realize is that you can take that almond from the Almond Joy and put it on a Mounds, so there's some customization that you can do there.
Interesting. So it's kind of like the synergy of both of the candies together. You got a little milk chocolate, dark chocolate. I personally would just go with the Almond Joy all day, but that's me.
Personally, I feel like unless you have something to drink with it, Almond Joys are tough because you got the coconut is kind of tough to chew. Then you got the almond. You're going to need some sort of drink to wash it down. So
I could eat one, like I could eat one right now, and I could eat a couple of those things. I do love those. Dave, let's move on. You got the New England Patriots.
Yep. And hey, real quick, back to your point about Miami and the Starburst. Another great thing about the Starburst is they're not going to melt in your hands. Miami's hot. You choose a chocolate option, you're in trouble. That's just going to make a mess. So Starburst wrapped up, less likely to melt. It's a smart choice for you.
That's really good. I feel like they could survive a nuclear blast.
Yep. So I've got the Patriots, and I chose the Boston baked beans. Because here's the thing about the Patriots and Boston baked beans. Outside of Boston, people don't like them. So I felt like that was perfect. I personally think Boston baked beans are one of those underrated candies, but you're not going to have many people appreciate them. And so that's kind of like the Patriots. People are haters. A lot of people probably hate the Boston baked beans as much as they hate the Patriots. So I figured that was like a perfect fit for the Patriots.
I think you nailed it. Both of those things suck. I mean, they're terrible, and especially the Patriots right now. They're not doing so well. They obviously haven't sucked in the past, but currently, and I think that's really what we're talking about, the Patriots are sucking it up, and those Boston baked beans just also suck. Dave, I'm jumping in with the New York Jets. I took 3 in this division. I think it'll kind of shake out. I'm got the New York Jets.
I'm sorry. Real quick, I do have a little anecdote about the Boston baked beans. So another point about the Boston baked beans is I had a neighbor who was my friend, and I didn't realize it, but he was actually allergic to peanuts. And I didn't know what a Boston baked bean was, but he was over at my house, and I had him, and I gave him some, and he was eating it, and he was like, "What does this taste like, plastic?" I said, "I don't know." He goes, "Let me see the package." And he looked at it, and it said Boston baked beans. And he was like, "What are these?" I was like, "I don't know what they are. Like candied peanuts, I guess." And he was like, "Peanuts? I'm allergic to peanuts." And he took off running. And so he ended up surviving, but I think he choked quite a bit. Which, speaking of choking, I feel like the Patriots have been choking a lot since Tom Brady left. But full disclosure to people who don't know, Boston baked beans are sugar-coated peanuts, okay? So if you got a nut allergy, be really careful about the Boston baked beans.
I feel like I wasn't exactly 100% sure what a Boston baked bean was, and now that you described it, I think I might like it. It's tempting. I think that's what Boston sports teams will do to you. They've got like that historical context and the championship spirit, but boy, you can't always want to root for the champions. Sometimes you got to root for the underdog, Dave. Speaking of underdogs, we got the New York Jets, right? So, the candy that immediately came to my mind, I'm not sure, maybe it was just the imagery, the typography, but the Junior Mint. I feel like the Junior Mint's got the green font, the Jets have the green font, Mint and Jet, one syllable words. I feel like there's a hard shell, kind of a crunchy shell that's protective on the outside, but then it's a soft interior inside. And the fact that, of course, the Junior Mint was featured on Seinfeld, and it flipped into the open man's stomach during surgery, like one of the most iconic scenes from the show. It was a Junior Mint. That was the whole thing. And the show takes place in New York. It's like quintessential New York. It just seemed to make a lot of sense to me.
I like that. That was the first one we talked about, and I think that was like perfect.
Good.
Way to go.
Thanks, Dave. I really appreciate that. Thanks so much. And hey, New York Jets, Robert Saleh, our guy from Dearborn, Michigan. Let's go. Of course, Sean's going to say, oh, wait, 49ers guy too. Cool. That is good. We appreciate that, of course. But let's go Jets. Jets. I always got to love those guys. Let's move to the north. Dave, let's turn it over to you for one of these. Let's do the Cleveland Browns.
All right. So this took a little bit of research because I didn't actually know the name of this candy, but I think everybody knows of it. It's the candy that you get from your grandma or from an older person on the block during Halloween. It's probably like the least expensive candy that somebody could buy. It is the Melster Peanut Butter Kisses. And so you might not know it by that name, but they're those little peanut butter molasses like blob wrapped up in like a wax paper, like a black or orange wax paper. And I'm pretty sure if a kid ever got something like that for Halloween, they're gonna just give that to their parents, or it's just gonna find its way to the bottom of the bag. By the time they eat all the good candy, that probably just gets thrown out. So the reason I came up with that for the Browns is color scheme similar. It's just a total junk candy that nobody wants, and it's cheap, which the Browns are going to have to be since they spent all of their money.
Dirtbag, Mr. Dirtbag.
Deshaun Watson, like $230 million guaranteed. So from here on out, the Browns are going to have to be passing out the Melsters Peanut Butter Kisses. If you've never had one of those, you're lucky. I don't think I've ever had one that tasted good, and so what I think is, I initially thought they were stale, right? But it's a long shot that every single one I've ever had in my life has been stale. I think they come off the line stale. Like, they're just gross. I don't think they should be crunchy, but you get the crunchy ones sometimes. Probably one of the worst candies that a kid could get for Halloween, which is why I assigned them to the Browns.
It almost sounds like you hate this candy, and therefore you hate the Cleveland Browns, which is...
I don't want to sound harsh. I don't like the candy. There is at least one player on the Browns that I'm very fond of, and that's Myles Garrett. He's actually a generational talent, and so I want him to do well. But as far as the Browns organization goes, they put themselves in these terrible positions, and so they ran Baker Mayfield out of town, and now they're stuck with Deshaun Watson, who doesn't even want to play football. I think that's going to probably go down as one of the worst trades, which, speaking of trades, a Melster Peanut Butter Kiss is one of those candies you would never trade for.
Ever. I think that's really interesting to hear that about the Browns, and not their defense looks so great. That's the frustrating thing with Myles Garrett, like you were saying. But yeah, their offense, they just can't seem to figure that out. Dave, I'm gonna turn it back over to you for another one of these. You want to do the Pittsburgh Steelers?
I feel like this would be this was a pretty straightforward one, right? The Steelers are one of the most storied franchises in the NFL. They are one of the foundational teams in the NFL. And we try to think of a candy that's like, what's the go-to candy that's been around forever, that it's simple, it's not flashy. Everyone's had one before. It doesn't let you down. It's very
Swedish Redfish?
And you're thinking of something else. So for the Pittsburgh Steelers, we chose the plain Hershey's Bar. I'm pretty sure there's a Hershey, Pennsylvania too, which is part of the other connection. So it's a simple foundational candy for a simple foundational team.
I think everybody saw that one coming a mile away. If you think this one's a
Swedish fish,
if anybody in the comment section thinks that was a cop out, then let us know if we should be more creative with that one. It seemed like the most obvious, right? It really did, Dave. I mean, like, and that's where it's kind of like, okay, it's boring, sure, and it's not even that great of a chocolate. I mean, I'd rather have a better chocolate bar than that one. What do you think? Is you even like that chocolate bar?
Chocolate quality wise, it's terrible. It's like
terrible.
It's like flavored wax, but it is pretty key for a s'more. And they're like one of those candies, like, you buy them, but you don't really enjoy eating them. Like, if I have to eat like a Hershey bar, it's because I'm desperate. And actually, pro tip, if you put it in the freezer, it's a little bit more palatable. If you eat at room temperature, Hershey bars are kind of gross at room temperature, in my opinion. It's either they got to be frozen or they have to be on a s'more and melted.
Dave, anything else you want to talk about the Hershey's candy bar, chocolate bar, and the Pittsburgh Steelers?
I would say the last point to make about Hershey's is that it's boring and it doesn't excite you much, kind of like the Steelers. The other thing is, It's been around for a long time. It doesn't change, just like how the Steelers don't change their coach. They find a coach and they stick with them forever. I don't know if they've ever fired a coach before. I think Tomlin's been great, but they're one of those franchises like, hey, once they make a move, they stick with that person until they die.
Yeah.
or retire.
Well, I did watch the Steelers game this past weekend, and I had Pickens on my team, and I'll tell you that there was more excitement at the bottom of a well than there was in that game. So not very exciting, and Hershey's chocolate bar also not very exciting. Dave, I'm gonna take the Baltimore Ravens. They whooped on the Lions, and so I got some like up close and personal viewing of them being a good a playoff team, or what hopefully is a playoff team. So I went with a take 5. I really didn't even know what a take 5 was up until I want to say a couple months ago. I know it's not new, but I really hadn't seen it around that much. And I feel like it's so perfect for the Baltimore Ravens because they are looking to be one of the best teams in the league right now. And that whooping that they put on the Lions, obviously. But they're looking strong, and Lamar Jackson is looking good again. With Gus Edwards having a great game that he had. And I just feel like they're not getting the attention that now they're starting to get it a little bit more. But I felt like up until last week, they really were just flying under the radar. And the take 5, oh man, I'll tell you, it's so good. It's one of the best candy bars I've had in a long time. It's like chocolate, it's got caramel, and it's got pretzel in it. And it really just, the crunch from the pretzel adds that texture and the bite. And then you've got the chocolate and the caramel. It's a great candy bar.
Okay, and you have the salty and the sweet.
Yeah, you've got the salt and the sweet, yeah.
Is there peanut butter in it as well?
I don't think there's... Oh, there is peanut butter in it. Yeah, of course. How could I forget the peanut butter?
Is it called to take 5 because there's 5 ingredients, or is it like, hey, take 5 minutes to enjoy this treat?
Dave, I honestly don't know.
If any viewers out there know, please comment.
Yeah, I'm sure we could do it, look it up right now. We can stop and look it up. But we're going to keep going. The Ravens are looking good, and the take 5 is also very good. Dave, you've got the Cincinnati Bengals.
Yeah, for the Bengals, I chose Twix Bar, which I feel like it's a candy bar that doesn't get enough credit, and it should, much like the Bengals. But it's also, you get 2 pieces. Now you get the left and the right. It's the same thing. They make it seem like they're different. The thing about the Bengals is you don't know what you're going to get. Are you going to get the left Twix or the right Twix? One game they beat the 49ers, and then the next they lose to a team they should be beating handily. So I felt like it's a solid candy bar for a team that has solid potential. They were Super Bowl contenders a year ago. Burrow has, once he's gotten paid though, he's kind of letting us down a little bit, but he's also been injured, so it's like a tale of 2 cities kind of thing. The other reason we chose Twix is we had to find a team to assign Twix to. We can't do 32 candy bars and leave Twix out. So if you feel like the Bengals should be a different candy, you should comment. Maybe give us some feedback on it. If you feel like they shouldn't be a Twix bar, let us know.
Dave is looking for a ghostwriter for his book about podcasting and observational thought. Okay, well, let's move on to the AFC South there. Moving on to the Houston Texans. And for the Houston Texans, I went with the Reese's Pieces. The Reese's is obviously one of the best candies of all time. I feel like Reese's Pieces are pretty good, and they're doing a pretty good job down there in Houston. Pretty cool to see them not be the worst team in the league this year, or for a couple of years in a row. And the Reese's Pieces is a pretty underrated. It's gonna melt, but it's not. It's got that protective shell around it, and so you might be good with the Reese's Pieces in a nuclear fallout. I'm not sure. I like them though, and I like what the Texans are doing. So that's how I feel about that. Dave, let's keep moving on here. What do you feel about the old Indianapolis Colts? What candy best identifies them?
All right, so I was envisioning this candy bar, right? And I was describing it to Alex, and I could not think of the name of it. But a silver package, square. It's got chocolate, raisins, peanuts, just ingredients that should come together and be pretty good, but they actually just are terrible together. And I asked my wife about it. I said, hey, have you ever had a chunky bar? She said, oh yeah, those are awful. I said, yeah, kind of like the Colts. They've been bad for quite a while. They fool you and they make you think, oh yeah, this is going to be the year, but they're screw ups. They from the top down, they're a dysfunctional organization. They're dusty, much like a chunky bar. Next time, next time you're at the gas station, you find a chunky bar. I'd be willing to bet money you wipe your finger across it, you're pulling dust off that sucker because they're not selling those very often. I don't know who's buying the chunky bar, but I'm not buying the Colts.
Okay, hey, I love it. I got it. I'm going with what you're saying on that one. The chunky bar. I don't think I've had it, and I really don't like rooting for the Colts. So it all seems to make sense to me, Dave. I'm going to talk about the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Candy, I think best. They're looking to be one of the best teams in the AFC right now, and I kind of thought, what's one of the best candies out there? Not the best candy, but what's one of the best candies out there? I thought a Kit Kat kind of fit who they are. My thought process being, do you remember that playoff game last year, that one playoff game where they played the Chargers and they were getting their asses kicked really badly? It was like 28-0 or something, or maybe 31-0. And in the first half, they were like, their percentage to win was like negative. And then they come back out in the second half, and what happened in the first half? Didn't Trevor Lawrence had like 3 interceptions?
I vaguely do remember this now. Started off terrible, and it was against the Chargers. So let me guess, the Chargers blew it, and the Jags came back.
That's exactly what happened, Dave. So the Kit Kat, you've got like, one candy, but it's like in 2 pieces basically. It's still connected, and that's what the entirety of the game was. But on this one side, you got the one Kit Kat. That was the first half. I'm just getting blown out. And then you've got the second Kit Kat on, attached to it. It sounds so stupid. It's like the Lone Rangers, from Airheads, the movie. But, the Kit Kat, I really think embodies who the Jags are. So we'll see. We'll see what kind of season they finish out having. But their Kit Kats are very good candy bars. So they're looking to be a very good team. Dave.
Quick thing about the Kit Kats. That's actually one of my that's my dad's favorite candy bar is a Kit Kat. So I got lots of memories of him going to the gas station, buying a Kit Kat bar, coming out and breaking off a piece of the Kit Kat bar for us. And as far as it being a good fit for the Jags, I can see what you mean there.
Give me a break. Give me a break and break me off a piece of that Kit Kat bar. That's a jingle. I should have gotten into the jingle business. I mean, man.
That's actually a trademarked jingle, so you're going to have to probably edit that out.
Yeah, that's just scrap all of that. Dave, we're moving on to the last team in the AFC South. We're looking at the Tennessee Titans. Who you got?
This was a no-brainer, and I think if somebody thinks about, like, hey, what's a candy bar that would best fit the Tennessee Titans, I think most people would start thinking about, okay, what are they known for? What are they known for now? Maybe who's a great player that they have currently, and that's Derrick Henry. An O. Henry bar, which I don't think I've ever had. I don't really know what's in it, but just the name alone, you can't pass up choosing the O. Henry bar if it's Derrick Henry's Tennessee Titans. So if anyone has had an O. Henry bar and they could describe it, please drop a comment. I'd like to know. I don't think I see these for sale very often. And speaking of not being for sale, for some reason, even though they're going to lose him next year anyway, they weren't willing to sell Derrick Henry at the trade deadline, which blows my mind that they held on to him. Just like how the stores are holding on to these O. Henry bars. I'm pretty sure they're not selling any of these. These are probably as dusty as a chunky bar.
Half of these I haven't even seen in the gas station in years. So, Dave, I think that makes a lot of sense. The O. Henry, the Derrick Henry, I love it. That's a great connector right there. You're an idea man. Has anybody ever told you that you're an idea guy?
I've been told that in the past. Thank you.
Okay, well, what do you say we move on to the AFC West? I think you're going to take us into another one here. How about the Las Vegas Raiders?
Gotcha. So if you're a Raiders fan, forgive me, nothing personal. I get it. You're loyal to your team, even though they've moved locations. But no matter where they are, they have sucked for a long time. And so when we were doing our brainstorming, we just thought everlasting gobstoppers, which I don't think I've seen gobstoppers for sale in a store in a while. They do pop up in the Halloween candy bag from time to time. But gobstoppers are one of those that you can just have for a long time I don't know how to say it.
They've sucked for a long time.
If you're a Raiders fan, you probably can admit that your team has sucked for a long time. And speaking of sucking for a long time, Gobstoppers are one of those candies that they're going to last for a while, and they're not going to do much for you. They're going to maintain some flavor, and eventually, you might get tired of it and just grit your teeth and power through it. But yeah, I figured with the whole not being very good, that the Gobstoppers were a perfect fit for the Raiders. No offense to Raider Nation, by the way.
No offense at all to Raider Nation. Your team just sucks right now. With the Gobstopper, I feel like it's always changing color, and it's always like something different. And I also kind of feel like with the Raiders, they had Carr in there, and now they're going to Garoppolo. And I just feel like, do they know exactly what they're doing? It just keeps changing on them. And is McDaniels the right coach for them? I'm not sure. I just don't have a good sense of put my finger on who they are and what their franchise really is and what their identity is. Yeah.
You bring up a great point. Much like the Steelers will stick with a coach for a long time, in a good way, the Raiders will stick with a coach that's not a good fit. So right now, they're in trouble, but they're not making a change. Maybe they're waiting for all the flavors to work their course, and then eventually he'll just dissolve. But I feel like they should have moved on by now. And the fact that it's lasting so long is a surprise.
And if you think about the Gobstopper dissolving in a glass of water, it's all going to be brown. It's just going to be a really shitty color.
Yeah, one more thing about the Gobstoppers that I can think of now, as far as a relation to the Raiders, is in Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. That was actually the piece that Willy Wonka released, right, to try to test the kids, to see if they would succumb to the spy that actually worked for Willy Wonka. What was his name? Slugworth?
Sounds about right.
I want to say Slugworth worked for Willy Wonka, and he was trying to test the kids, their ethics, and he wasn't really a spy, but it reminds me of Spygate, which reminds me of Josh McDaniels. So I could see Josh McDaniels pulling a dirty move like that, So yeah, I feel like the more we talk about it, the more we can relate Gobstoppers to the Raiders. But either way, it's a candy that sucks, and it goes on too long, and you should have probably just moved on, but you didn't because you couldn't.
Dave, also, what about Al Davis? Kind of a legendary figure in the game of football. And then you've got Willy Wonka, who is the man, the myth, the legend. And I'm sure we could find similarities in the two of them as well. They're kind of myths to their own organization and to the outside world.
Well, one more point. I can see a remake of Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory and call Al Davis and the Football Factory. And he's getting up there in age, and he decides, hey, I don't really know what I'm doing. I'm just going to give my franchise to somebody who wins a golden ticket out of a Gobstopper package. And they could actually make a movie where a kid ends up taking over the team and probably doing better than what they're doing now.
Yeah, God, that's a great point. I love that. Okay, I'm gonna take one. How about we do the LA Chargers? Just watched them a couple nights ago. The game was so boring. I feel like the candy that best represents them, it's also a boring candy. And what about the chocolate coin? I don't even think there's a brand associated with the chocolate coin. I think it's just like a coin of chocolate that any number of manufacturers could come out with. And I also feel like the fan base to the LA Chargers is the most generic, non-existent fan base as it is. So I feel like there's a lot of similarities there. What is this thing?
I agree. It's like fool's gold too. You're is this a coin? Is it a toy? Is it food? Do you trust it? How old is it? Is it going to make you sick? Probably all of the above. Chargers will make you sick. They're not legit. They'll let you down. The chocolate coins are one of those things you just tuck away in the drawer, and you think, if I get really desperate, I'll have one of these. But for the most part, you're pitching it after a certain period of time.
I feel like I'm asking myself, Is this even a candy? Is this even a franchise?
It honestly might not even be technically considered edible. It might not be safe for human consumption. I think most kids they're more excited at the prospect of having a gold coin, and when they realize it's chocolate inside, they're actually immediately disappointed because those things are gross.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, Dave, you're gonna take over You're gonna do the Kansas City Chiefs. What candy are the Kansas City Chiefs most like?
So we kind of looked at it like, hey, the Chiefs are like a top tier team right now, and they've been top tier for a while. And we tried to think of like, what's a candy that's top tier, and we couldn't forget Reese's peanut butter cups. It's very simple. It's just chocolate and peanut butter, but that simple combination works so well together, and it's unbeatable. It's an unbeatable combination. So we also thought about the fact that Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce are basically chocolate and peanut butter. Simple, they work well together, they're a perfect fit.
It's like a cheat code.
It's like a cheat code, yeah. And so the Reese's Peanut Butter Cups, it's a God tier level candy for a God tier level team right now. And I think one day if the Chiefs end up falling off the cliff, we would reassign them. But for now, to me, I think the Reese's Peanut Butter Cup, you can't get much better than that, just like the Chiefs. Now, that being said, I know the Chiefs had a down week against the Broncos, but I haven't lost faith in them. Mahomes was sick, so I'm going to give him a pass on that loss.
Yeah, but we'll get to the Broncos candy in a second as well. As a matter of fact, that's our last one in the AFC West. We did talk about the Hershey's and the s'mores. I have heard that the Reese's is replacing the Hershey chocolate bar in some instances, and it's just like dynamite. And I think we thought that one out pretty smoothly. It's one of the best candies out there. But now think about this: the Take 5. I'm gonna die on this hill here. I do think the Take 5 is better. So think about that: Baltimore or Kansas City. Who you got, Dave? Oh, putting you on the spot here, huh? That's a tough one.
I would like to think Kansas City over Baltimore probably 9 times out of 10.
Oh, wow.
So,
wow.
Yeah.
Okay. I think that's actually interesting because the Reese's, if you did like a favorite candy survey, then I'd say like an exponential number more people are going to say that they want the Reese's over the Take 5 anyway. So I could see that. But all I'm saying is that I think the Ravens got a pretty good shot at, if they're just going head to head, neutral field, or they're playing in Baltimore. I might take that Take 5 over the Reese's.
Yeah, I will speak to what you said about the peanut butter cups being a good substitute for a Hershey's bar. It is pretty good. I will say that the texture is a little bit goofy, and I know what you're thinking, like, hey, did you remove the wrapper off the peanut butter cup? And yes, I did. Even with the wrapper removed, the heat somehow like changes the chocolate and the peanut butter, and it has like a kind of an odd texture to it when you bite through it. So I would say that the flavor's good, but it's not a perfect substitute.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, it's a great candy, great football team. I don't think it's the best right now. Also don't think the Reese's is the best. But let's talk about the team that did just beat them and the candy that just beat them. The Denver Broncos, to me, is an M&M. It's the classic M&M. It's a classic candy. It's a classic franchise. And, it's also pretty bland and boring. I feel like, historically the Broncos have been better than the Chiefs. Although, the Chiefs I think they've been okay in the past. But, the Broncos being a pretty historic franchise. And the M&M being kind of the quintessential candy, one of the candies that we kind of grew up with in American history. So I see it being being kind of related in that regard. But again, it's boring. I don't want to just sit there and nibble on some M&Ms. I don't want to watch a Broncos game.
I agree. The M&Ms are like a cornerstone candy, and the Broncos are a cornerstone franchise. So that makes sense. And although there's lots of different colors of M&Ms, it's all the same. There's not different flavor within a type, right? So I think that's good. Now, are you saying like the classic chocolate M&Ms, not the peanut butter M&Ms, right?
Correct.
Or not the peanut M&Ms or peanut butter?
Correct. Just the
Okay,
classic
just the
brown
classic
bag
chocolate M&Ms.
M&M. Yep.
I agree with that assessment. And if you disagree, put a comment on the video at the end.
Dave, something else that occurred to me is that if you're like just munching on some plain M&Ms, you might like throw it and actually choke. You're choking on the M&M in your mouth. And I also feel like you might want to choke yourself if you're rooting for the Denver Broncos this year. So I just saw a lot of parallels there. Okay, Dave, let's move on to the NFC. Let's start with the NFC North, actually. Why don't you take on the Minnesota Vikings?
So for the Minnesota Vikings, I was thinking, what's a simple candy that doesn't get a lot of respect that could kind of let certain people down. And I also thought, hey, the name is perfect because this season's going to end up being a dud for them, and especially after they've lost Kirk Cousins now for the year. So Milk Duds. Pro tip I actually just heard today that a Milk Dud's one of those candies that could really do some damage if you have fillings. Keep the Milk Duds in your pocket for a little bit, warm them up, and they're a lot easier to eat at that point. So I think Milk Duds for me is not personally something that I would buy, but if somebody gave me a Milk Dud, yeah, I would enjoy it, but I'm not searching it out. Just like I'm not searching out watching a Vikings game. It's a respectable candy, and it's just not for me. And I think outside of Minnesota, I don't know if there's any ties to a Milk Dud, but I would imagine it's not a widely acceptable team. It's not a widely acceptable candy.
Yeah. When we were thinking on this one, in my mind, I thought about that Zero bar, right? That one candy bar, that Zero, because it's white. Let's move on from Minnesota. Let's go over to the Lions. For me, this is a classic candy bar. I think this might be one of America's candy bars, and the Detroit Lions are now America's team. The Dallas Cowboys, get them out of. We don't even want to think about them. The ratings that the Lions put up in primetime are like huge numbers, and I really do feel like it's one of the new teams that people are just rooting for, and they're the lovable Lions. So the one that I was thinking was the Snickers candy bar. I mean, it's a very, very popular one. I feel like it's a pretty complex bar. I feel like the Lions are strong on all three levels. If you're hungry, why wait? I feel like with the Lions, they're hungry. They want to go out there. They're going to be the ones who are going to hunt. They're not going to be the ones who are going to be hunted. I feel like if you're hungry, you got to get up there and get your food. So that's what they're all about. I love it. And another thing is that Campbell's going to call it like it is, and if any player is going to be a diva on the team, then he's going to tell you. So I feel like it was a pretty easy layup to identify the Snickers with the Lions here.
I feel like that's high praise because, in my opinion, Snickers are an absolute top tier candy bar because it's not just a candy bar; it's actually a meal.
Let's go.
They've done a great job marketing it to make it look like, hey, this is a healthy option. If you're hungry, you should grab a Snickers. And Snickers has had some great taglines over the years, like "You're not you when you're hungry," "Why wait?" "Snickers satisfies." So to assign like a legendary candy to a team like the Lions, yeah, they're having a great year. I hope that the Lions end up being like the Snickers bar. I hope they satisfy their fans. Right now, I'm not totally sold on it. I'm not going to argue with you. I feel like it is a good fit. I hope they can live up to it. I feel like if the Lions knew that you raised the bar so high that they are like a Snickers bar, I don't know if they're going to handle that pressure, honestly. Like, that's a lot of pressure.
The funny thing is that they've handled the pressure in all of their primetime games. They've got I think a 5-game primetime win streak going on right now, so they're handling the pressure. So, but that's the thing is like are they going to continue to do it? So we'll see if they can get more victories. Just keep it going, keep that gravy train rolling. Think about dipping a Snickers bar into gravy. Oh, that might be okay. We'll see how it looks. Dave, let's talk about a team that kind of sucks right now, the Chicago Bears.
Gotcha. So I don't know if anybody out there likes gummy bears, right? There's a couple different brands. The most famous one is probably the Haribo brand, which I know I'm going to ruin our chance at ever being sponsored by those
Don't do
guys.
it. Haribo ma Kinderfo. Don't do it. Don't do it, Dave.
I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan of the Haribo. No matter when you get them,
That's too
they're
me
just
alive.
they're overly chewy, right? But I thought there's got to be a gummy bear that makes sense to fit in with the Chicago Bears. And actually, when I think of gummy bears now, I think instantly. I think Albanese. If anyone out there has ever had the opportunity to try an Albanese gummy worm or gummy bear, I think they'd all agree, hands down, a better candy than the Haribo. And the other thing is the Albanese Candy Factory is just outside of Chicago. So I thought it was a perfect fit. It is a great candy. The Bears could be great. They probably won't. But as far as a relationship to the candy, just the fact that it's outside of Chicago, I just really love Albanese gummy bears, and I had to do a plug. Actually, I got a guy in my Dynasty Fantasy Football League. His last name is Albanese, and we always joke that he's actually the heir to the Albanese candy fortune. I think if he goes to the Albanese factory, he can ask for a discount. They'll probably grant it. But
He's royalty.
I just thought, hey, out of any candy out there for the Bears, it's got to be the Albanese gummy bears.
Yeah, I love it, Dave. That's a great one. Way to connect the dots on that. You're an idea man. Has anybody ever told you that?
Yeah, you had mentioned that before. Thanks.
Yeah, for sure. Dave, I'm going to move on to the Green Bay Packers, and because I hate them and they're the worst franchise of all time, I'm going to give them a really, really shitty candy. I'm actually maybe going to change it up on this one. I initially had Circus peanuts on there. You know, those like orange foamy things. I honestly, if you're on like a construction site, you might mistake one of those for like foam that they're insulating walls with and all that stuff. They're the grossest things in the world, and it's like death crystal wise, I bet you're at like 50 trillion death crystals per bite with those things. Same thing with the freaking Green Bay Packers. But actually, I moved off of that, and I actually, Dave, you inspired me earlier. You mentioned probably the worst Halloween present that you could ever get, and the Green Bay Packers are now going to be a toothbrush.
Uh, yeah, okay.
Green
Yeah,
Bay
we can talk about,
Packers
like,
is a toothbrush.
we talked about non-food items or non-traditional type candy items. When we were initially going to do the Tournament of Champions, it was going to be like a pencil, an apple, a toothbrush, or some dimes. And if you want to say toothbrush, that works for me. I do want to speak on the Circus peanut just for a second. That's one of those candies where if somebody gifted you Circus peanuts, you honestly wouldn't know, is this a gift or is this a screw you? Like, is this an insult? I think if somebody gave somebody a bag of Circus peanuts, they would legitimately be confused. Like, what are you trying to say here? I've never bought Circus peanuts, but I think the fact that you can only get them in like the cheapest possible packaging too. I don't even know if there's one company that makes them, or if it's just such generic candy that lots of companies do. I feel like we're really ragging on Circus peanuts, but I gotta be honest, I don't know if I've ever actually eaten one. So maybe
Yeah.
I should like give it a shot.
No, don't give it a shot. That's like saying you're going to root for the Green Bay Packers in any game ever. So you don't. There's some things you don't have to try, and that's okay.
Can you buy just one?
This isn't like I'm going to get you, sucker. Like I just want one rib. No, it's not. You can't buy just one. It's not like going to the liquor store and asking for a single cigarette. It's not just buy one, Dave.
Well, let me ask you this, and you may know, and if not, maybe a viewer knows, and they can comment below. Is a Circus peanut just a packing styrofoam that they spray painted with a orange edible spray paint, or is it a marshmallow?
I don't think it's either. I think it's probably if they're a Venn diagram, I'd be like shades of both, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, well, obviously everybody can tell my deep hatred for the Green Bay Packers. And so a toothbrush it is because it's not even a candy. It doesn't even deserve to be mentioned in the same breath as the candy contest. And that's where you live in my heart. Green Bay is in the toothbrush aisle at a grocery store. Dave, let's move on to the NFC East. What about the Dallas Cowboys?
When I thought Dallas Cowboys, one candy bar immediately came to mind, and it was actually the Snickers bar. And I said, "Hey, Snickers bar, it's America's team, it's America's candy." Alex vetoed me. The very next thing I thought, "Hey, 100 grand bar." Now I realize that not everyone thinks of the 100 grand bar often, but when I think of the Cowboys, I think of Jerry Jones. I think about he is willing to spend money. Now, I don't think he would spend 100 grand on a candy bar, but I feel like he has enough money where he could if he wanted to. He's spent billions of dollars on the stadium. I just think of money. I think everything's bigger in Texas. So, like a 100 grand bar, or maybe one of those king size 100 grand bars, I think fit the Cowboys the best.
Pretty good insight there, Dave. I really like it. I was thinking the 49ers at first just because their salary cap's high and they have so many players with so many big contracts. So I kind of thought that might be where we go with that. But then you said the Dallas Cowboys. I thought you were like spot on. Good going with that, Dave. Just a real brain wizard over there. I'm going to take the Washington Commanders. And the candy bar that I don't even know. I'm sure they sell it nowadays, but it's actually the whatchamacallits. You know what? The Commanders were not the Commanders. They were just the Washington Redskins. And, you know, controversial and polarizing logo, so they had to change it to the Commanders. But half the time, I can't even remember what their team is. I'm always like, the Washington, what's their name again? And so I'm always kind of like, why don't we just call it the Washington whatchamacallits? One of my buddies actually, he does have a nickname for the team. He calls them the Durs, like as in the Commanders, which I like it. But now that we've really like landed on the whatchamacallits for the Washington team, I kind of want to go with that. Like, can they rebrand to the Washington whatchamacallits and be sponsored by them?
I can totally see like a co-branding marketing relationship or sponsorship where like the whatchamacallit comes up with like special like packaging, like the Washington Commanders like colors, or maybe the Washington Commanders give out whatchamacallits to their to their fans. But yeah, they went from the Redskins to the Washington football team to the Commanders. A lot of people legitimately still might call them the Redskins. And I think that's a perfect fit. The whatchamacallits, I mean, like, what are they right now? And would they change from the Commanders at some point? They possibly could. I wouldn't put it past them to change their name again in the next 20 years. Reckless speculation, the Commanders change their name in the next 20 years.
To the Washington whatchamacallits.
To the Washington whatchamacallits, we got to do a little research on, I think, is it the Mars company that owns whatchamacallits?
I don't know. Like 6 of them own everything, so it's one of them, Mandela's or something.
I could see one of the candy family empires buying the Commanders franchise and changing the name to the Washington whatchamacallits. That would be awesome.
Yeah, I mean, there's a huge opportunity for this, going from the Redskins to the Washington football team and then to the Commanders. How could they not do that? I feel like it's a layup opportunity.
I agree.
My God. Okay, Dave, how about we move on to the old New York Giants?
So this was one of those like instant association. As soon as you said New York Giants, I thought Baby Ruth bar.
Nailed it.
It's kind of like could be mistaken for a turd if you're watching Caddyshack, much like the Giants. But it's also a pretty decent candy bar at times. And I also just thought, hey, Babe Ruth, Baby Ruth. Babe Ruth played in New York for a while. So I just thought, hey, this is a perfect fit. So Baby Ruth is one of those candy bars that like I'm not setting out to buy. If you're on the golf course, they're not selling Baby Ruth bars. It's pretty much, for me, it's a Snickers bar. But every once in a while, I'll buy a Baby Ruth, you know, from the gas station. But if it's in my kid's candy bag, I'm going after that. Like I will eat their Baby Ruth bars because kids don't like them.
Yeah.
I don't want it to go to waste.
I think that's a really good one. I feel like it's Babe Ruth is almost synonymous with New York, and the Baby Ruth, it makes so much sense. So I see exactly how you did that, Dave. I love it.
I could see a sponsorship with those two companies together. Like the king size Baby Ruth, or actually call it like the giant Baby Ruth bar, and maybe they can have a promo for that.
Let's go. I'm going to move on to the Philadelphia Eagles. To me, their fan base is a little nuts, and that's why I'm going to give them the Payday Bar. Come on, their fan base, they're insane. The Raiders fan base, Raiders Nation, and obviously the Eagles. The Eagles will like murder somebody. I just feel like it's you have to have like a bulletproof vest. You have to come prepared when you go to a game. You got to be careful. They're dangerous people. So I kind of feel like that's the candy that best identifies who they are as a team.
I agree with that one. No offense to Philly fans.
Yeah, no offense to Philly fans at all. That you are the nuttiest in all of fandom. No offense, but yeah. Okay, well let's keep moving on, Dave. We got looks like two more divisions. We're gonna move on to the NFC South, and you've got the Atlanta Falcons.
So this one took quite a while because we thought, hey, when you think of Falcons, what do you associate it with? And we thought, I don't know, like, how about a blow pop, blowing a big lead? And then we ended up deciding to go, we can't, like, leave Butterfingers off this list here. And so we chose Butterfingers because they let it slip away 28-3. That's something that they'll probably never recover from. The Falcons are always going to be associated with like letting the Super Bowl slip through their fingers. Butterfinger. Now they're not plagued by drops, but I always think like, hey, they really missed an opportunity. They should have won that game. I'm glad they lost. I'm a Tom Brady fan. I still remember that game vividly. Remember at halftime thinking like, wow, if they can come back from this, this would be, a huge loss by the Falcons, almost like Hillary Clinton's loss, when she was up big in the election and then at the last minute she lost. So I'd say Butterfingers, Falcons. If you're a Falcons fan, I know this is going to hurt, but I couldn't think of a better candy that would be more associated with a Falcons team.
Yeah, Dave, that'd be painful to let a lead like that slip away in the Super Bowl. It'd be one of those things. When the Detroit Pistons won in 2004, they won the championship. We were like, let's go. Lost in Game 7 in 2005. One of those things that I never forget. At least they got the championship before it. Atlanta, they can't say the same thing. And it was just so promising. That would be so gut-wrenching. I would never, ever forget that game. So I love that one, Dave. Let's keep moving on. We're gonna stay with you, and let's do the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
This was something that was kind of a no-brainer. We initially picked a different candy bar, and then we ended up settling on. We're like, hey, we haven't had a Three Musketeer Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Three Musketeers. I mean, it's a simple candy bar for a simple team, and the name association's perfect. It's not a candy bar that's going to excite you right now. Tampa Bay's rebuilding. They don't really know what direction they're going. Are they competing? Are they rebuilding? They've got Baker Mayfield. They, I guess, are keeping Mike Evans. They probably could have traded him. I don't know why the fact that they're keeping him means that they're going to have to re-sign him or they're going to let him walk. But either way, it's a candy bar that doesn't create much excitement, much like Tampa Bay. They're not an exciting team anymore.
Woof, yeah. No fun, Tampa Bay. Glad the Lions beat you, but I'm going to take on the Carolina Panthers. I wish Jeremiah were here. He's over on Deutschland, so hello to our friend Jeremiah in Germany. I'm going to take the Panthers, and with them, I'm going to give them the Charleston Chew. Now, there's a Charleston in one of the Carolinas. I can never remember which one. And it's actually the Charleston Chew's named after the Charleston dance, which was popular in the 20s. Not named after the city, but, still okay. And I feel like, I actually kind of feel like I forgot what a Charleston Chew was. And when we were started talking about all the candies, I saw the picture of it, and then my mind went back to when I was a kid, and I used to buy them frozen. I don't know if you've ever had a Charleston Chew when it's frozen, but honestly, it really changes like the whole dynamic of everything. And it's like this nice like crunch off. When it's regular, you like chew it and it's like really chewy and it's kind of like a milk dud. It might kind of suck in your mouth. But when it's frozen, you just can like bite off like a little chunk of it, and then it really turns into a good candy. I guess what I'm saying is Bryce Young going to be cold, ice cold, frozen, or is he going to be just like lukewarm and chewy and not that great? I just don't know. We're going to see how his career turns out. I'm hoping for the former, hoping he's like a nice ice cold Charleston Chew that's refreshing and gets you the dub. What do you think?
I have had Charleston chews before, and I remember room temperature, they were kind of gross. I tried them frozen, and they were still kind of gross. I'm trying to remember. I'm pretty sure it's is it a chocolate covered nougat with like a marshmallow, like it's a marshmallow nougat center.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah. So not my cup of tea. Something that I would never like go out and buy, but hey, some people like it. It's a small market candy for a small market team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can see that. I really do like the frozen one though, so we're gonna agree to disagree right there. Let's move on to the last team in the NFC South. That is the New Orleans Saints. What do you got there, Dave?
So this is one of those situations where you can't leave out a key candy bar, okay? And I don't know if this is like a perfect fit, but for the Saints, I thought, hey, we can't leave out the Milky Way bar. Now, when I think of like New Orleans, I think of like the nightlife. I think of food. I think of culture. And with the Milky Way, there's a Milky Way Dark. There's a regular Milky Way. It's similar to Three Musketeers, but there is caramel. But I just think I think of the packaging for like a Milky Way Dark bar, and there's like the sky, and the moon and the stars and everything. I just think, New Orleans at night, Milky Way Dark. I don't think it's a perfect fit. I think if somebody has a better suggestion for a candy bar that encompasses the Saints, comment. I'd like to hear it.
There's probably some like super famous candy that's made in New Orleans that we don't even know about. And then somebody's screaming at the computer right now, and they're like, "Oh, it's that one, the New Orleans Nuggets!" Ah, so leave it. Let us know.
It's not a bad candy bar. It's not something that I would buy, but it turns up, from time to time, and yeah, you're gonna eat it, but you're not super excited about it. I think the Saints are in like a weird position right now. Like they've got Derek Carr. He's not a proven winner. I don't know what direction the team's going to go. Alvin Kamara's aging. He's having a great season right now, but I don't really know. Are they rebuilding? Are they trying to compete? They're kind of in no man's land, which kind of like a Milky Way bar in a way.
Yeah, it's not the best candy bar out there. It's a solid one, but it's never going to be the best one either.
Speaking of Milky Way, and here's one more little connection here. Alvin Kamara, like a Milky Way, great in space.
Oh, I like that. I see what you did there. Very nice, Dave. You're an idea, man. Let's move on to the last division of our candy ass teams, the NFC West. And I'm going to start with the Seattle Seahawks. This one's kind of a no-brainer. I used to live out there. It was like 2007 to 11. They had a pretty good football team, if you'll recall. They also had a guy named Marshawn Lynch. And that guy's a beast. He went to beast mode. He had Skittles. He ate them. People threw them to him. His mom brought him Skittles all the time to the games. And I kind of remember Skittles flying through the stadium. I don't know if I'm making that up, but man, he was all into the Skittles. After he'd score a touchdown, somebody would hand him a bunch and they'd just wolf him down. And I guess he ate him a bunch every time he scored after a touchdown in high school. And so it just carried on. And the Skittles, the Seattle Seahawks.
I like it. Skittles, to me, they're one of those candies I'm not going to go out and buy, but again, if they're in the kids' candy bag and they offer me some, yeah, I'll eat them. I just feel like for me, a little bit of Skittles goes a long way.
Yeah, and they are a bit of an overlooked team right now in the league, and they're really not getting that much love, even though I think they're 6-2. So it's one of those things where it's a pretty good candy. You can't underrate it. Don't forget about the Skittle. Don't forget about the Seahawks. Dave, something else that strikes me about the Skittles is that like it's they're pretty diverse in color, right? And I feel like the city of Seattle, it's also kind of a diverse city. It's also like queer friendly, and the Skittles are the rainbow. Taste the rainbow. I thought it was an easy connection. I think it's a perfect candy for a perfect city. So that's how I feel, Dave. Let's move on to the San Francisco 49ers.
Gotcha. So this might touch a nerve with some of our viewers, maybe Sean, for example. But I'm not a fan of Sour Patch Kids. I don't really do sour candies in general. But we thought Sour Patch Kids is great for 49ers, especially lately. Like, I think the 49ers are a highly regarded team. I think the Sour Patch Kids are kind of an underrated candy. But I feel like the slogan for the Sour Patch Kids kind of matches up. Like, first they're sweet, then they're sour. The 49ers started off the season great. Like, Brock Purdy had won, I want to say, like 10 plus games in a row to start his career, or games that he completed. He won 10 of them in a row. And then all of a sudden the wheels fell off. So now we're in the sour phase of the 49ers. And if we could, like, maybe pull up some pictures of Sean's face, it's almost like he just had a big mouthful of Sour Patch Kids, because he seems like he's struggling a little bit. They've got not a great distinction of being one of the only teams I can think of to be victims of the Any Given Sunday back to back to back.
Whoa.
So I feel like if you're a 49ers fan right now, you're going through a rough patch. Sour Patch, you're going through a sour patch. I'm sorry, but I feel like Sour Patch Kids are the best association I can think of for the 49ers right now.
Dave, I do want to say that it's first the sour hits you, then the sweet. But I see exactly what you mean. I mean, you got both of those, and like you said, they were sweet at the beginning of the season, then they've been sour, and yeah, it doesn't. Personally, it's one of my favorite candies, and so I actually would put it in maybe like the top 5 of all candies in my list. And I definitely see them in the, they up until 3 weeks ago, they were regarded as the best team in the league. And even 2 weeks ago, they were still regarded, just after that one loss to Cleveland, they're still regarded as one of the best. I love some Sour Patch Kids. So I think it's a really good one as well. You got any more thoughts on that before we move on to the Los Angeles Rams?
I appreciate you clarifying that. It shows how much I know. I don't think I've ever purchased Sour Patch Kids outside of grabbing a box at the movie theater for my daughter. I didn't realize that was actually the slogan, so I had it backwards, but I feel like I'm still sticking with Sour Patch Kids. They're going to be sweet at one point and sour at the other. I got the order wrong, but I'm sticking to it. Sour Patch Kids, that's the 49ers all day.
Okay, I love it. I'm going to take the Los Angeles Rams, and I feel like McVay has a ton of coaches from his coaching tree. I feel like he probably thinks he's really smart, and a lot of those coaches think that they're Smarties as well, so it would just seem like a natural candy, the Smarties. A lot of Smarties in there, or what they think are Smarties. You can't really argue with a lot of the results, so I'll take the results word for it. But I will say that the candy kind of sucks, and so does their team this year. So, I mean, it's not like the worst candy in the world, and I do think kids kind of like it. I could see kids liking the Rams, and it's a LA team in a big market, and they won a Super Bowl and all that, but I don't know. It's not the candy I'd ever want to, go purchase or really eat at any point, and kind of a lame one, and they look like a lame duck this year.
I feel like Smarties are probably only purchased a couple times a year by the average person. It's during Halloween if they're on a budget, which, speaking of a budget, the Rams have pretty much mortgaged their entire future to get Matt Stafford and position themselves a couple of years ago to win a Super Bowl, which they did. Good for them. But they're going to be in trouble going forward, so they're on a budget now. Probably that's all they can afford. And then the other time you buy Smarties, if you're trying to fill up a piñata. And so I feel like the Rams kind of remind me of a piñata. They're going to get beat up pretty good. And the whole Smartie reference as far as Sean McVay, I like that. Kids seem to like Smarties. My daughters, they will eat like package after package of Smarties. It's just pure sugar. There's not much going on there. It's terrible for you. Just like if you're a Rams fan, it's terrible for you.
Yeah, terrible watching for sure. Okay, Dave, take us home. We got one more team here, and we've got the Arizona Cardinals. Who do you got?
Yep, I think the phrase is you got to save the absolute worst for last. And so now, record wise, I think the Cardinals might have one or two games over the Panthers. But, obviously we had to choose Charleston Chew for the Panthers. But I think the Cardinals are one of those other, like, terrible teams that most people expected to have no wins at all, right? So they're surprising, and in a way, this is surprising. Necco wafers, okay, terrible candy, but surprisingly, they're still in business. I think the rumor was a couple of years ago that they were going to close the factory because whoever was in charge of like cutting up the pieces of chalk and putting them in the packaging, maybe they were going to retire and they were going to close the factory down. But Necco wafers are still produced. I don't know who's buying them. I don't know what's keeping them afloat. I don't know who's buying the Cardinals right now. Even with Kyler Murray on the verge of coming back, I think it's a terrible team. It's a dysfunctional team. The wafers, it's a terrible candy for a terrible team that makes terrible decisions like giving Kyler Murray over $100 million guaranteed, and the guy doesn't even want to study any game tape. So let me throw this challenge out to you viewers. If next time you're at a grocery store and you see a package of Necco wafers, I think the kind thing to do would be to buy a package, keep that company in business, because I don't know who's buying this stuff. It must be like a prank. Maybe they make a little toy gun that shoots the Necco wafers out, but I'm pretty sure, if you like chalk, if you like eating chalk, you might like a Necco wafer. But Alex, have you ever had one? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. They're awful. They're the worst candy. I mean, I've said that about a lot of things, but this could be the worst candy. It's pointless, plain.
This could be the worst candy of all time. It's worse than the peanut butter kiss for the Browns. It is worse than the Circus peanut. If somebody gave you Necco wafers as a gift, you might you're not going to write them a thank you note.
Yeah.
You might not even tell them thank you.
Yeah.
It could be a gift where you're just immediately throwing it right in the trash. So I don't know what they're good for. If you are a fan of Necco wafers,
please unsubscribe.
I feel like the number of Necco wafer fans will coincide with the number of people watching this podcast, and so the odds are slim that one of our fans is also a fan of Necco wafers. But I'm just telling you right now, if you do like Necco wafers, please comment below that you do like Necco wafers and go out and buy an extra package for me.
Yeah, and don't unsubscribe. That was mean. Stay subscribed. We love you all. Even if you're a sicko and you like Necco wafers, then we'll still keep you up. We've still got love in our hearts. So
I don't want to alienate the fans out there. If you do like Necco wafers, I know that we're ripping on them pretty hard. If you happen to
it's a terrible candy,
Necco wafers factory,
leave a comment below.
Leave a comment if you want to get a hold of us and maybe send us some Necco wafers to try on air. I think that would make for great content.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, maybe throughout the year we could have these candies while we're watching the games.
Oh, that's a good idea. I like that. Okay, Dave, that wraps it up for the Candy Ass Team segment that we had for tonight's second part of the Halloween special. Thanks so much for joining us. But before we get out of here, we're going to do a count backward from the worst candy that was associated with the teams in the power rankings that we referenced. And then we're going to work our way back to the best candy. So I do believe the Arizona Cardinals were the worst team. So starting at 32, we've got the Necco wafers. Then we've got the Charleston Chew. 30, we've got the Albanese Gummy Bears. That's the Chicago Bears. 29, we've got the Baby Ruth. 28, the Boston Baked Beans. 27, the Toothbrush. Fuck the Packers. 26, the M&Ms. 25, the Gobstoppers. 24, whatchamacallit. 23, Reese's Pieces. 22, O. Henry. 21, Chunky Bar. 20, the Three Musketeers. 19, Smarties. 18, the Butterfinger. 17, Milk Duds. 16, Milky Way. 15, the Chocolate Coins. what was that? The LA Chargers. 14, the Hershey's. 13, Junior Mints. 12, we've got the Melster. 11, the Twix. 10, Skittles. The 9th best candy, according to the NFL Power Rankings of this year, is the Almond Joy and the Mounds. The 8th best candy is the Snickers. 7 is the Sour Patch Kids. 6 is the Kit Kat. The 5th best team right now, Dave, they say is the Dallas Cowboys. And that was the $100,000, if you'll recall that. The Power Rankings have the Baltimore Ravens at number 4. So we've got the Take 5. I told you it was close, Dave. I told you it was close. Number 3, we've got the Kansas City Chiefs, actually, so the Reese's. Number 2, we've got the Miami Dolphins and the Starburst. And number 1, well, they're putting the Philadelphia Eagles the very best of the league right now, and that's the Payday. And I can't argue, Dave. The results speak for themselves.
Thanks for wrapping that up nice and neat for the viewers. Good rundown, good recap of all the candies and the rankings and how they associate. And how they line up. So, yeah. Way to sum it up.
We did it. Thanks, Dave. I thought it was a team effort here. And thanks, everybody, for joining. It's been another fun episode of the Four Birdies podcast. It's been a great one. This is part 2 of the Halloween special. So if you didn't see part 1, then go back and watch that one. We're talking about everything, all the fallout from this Sunday slate of games for Week 8 in the NFL. And keep tuned in more for more episodes as we continue to make them. So let's go. Go Lions. Go Candy. Go Halloween. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Okay.
Let's go. See you next time on the Four Birdies podcast.
Yeah, we'll see y'all next time. Have a good night or a day or whenever you're watching this.